Hey everyone, this is an article that was originally in French, and I'm translating it, uh, or it's is translating it, not me. It was originally in French. It's from 1975. It's titled "World Socialism, Yes; State Capitalism, No: A Critique of Trotskyism." It's from the Socialist Party of Canada, and I believe this was originally published in French. I guess for the people of the French speakers in Canada. So here we go. In Quebec, as everywhere else in the world, many political organizations claim to be socialist. The fact that an organization proclaims itself socialist does not mean that it is socialist. We consider that only the Socialist Party of Canada and its companion parties are the real and only revolutionary socialist parties in the world. All other organizations that proclaim themselves socialist have as their goal state capitalism. In the case of organizations of the Leninist, Stalinist, Trotskyist, Maoist, Castro type, or a mixture of state and private capitalism, social democratic recipe. In Quebec, a Trotskyist organization affiliated with the quote, Fourth International, the quote, Ligue Socialiste Ouvrière, LSO, while calling for Marxist socialism, pursues a goal and uses means that have nothing to do with socialism. The Ligue Socialiste Ouvrière claims to pursue socialism as its goal. Here is the quote, socialism set out in their electoral program of October 1973. National independence through the consequent expulsion of imperialism, ... For French unilingualism. For the expropriation of all foreign monopolies under workers' control, nationalization of the banks, planning of the economy, ... and industrialization capable of eradicating regional disparity and unemployment. Separation of church and state, expropriation of the wealth of the Catholic Church in order to finance the mass construction of low-rent housing. Repeal of abortion laws. Equal pay for equal work, end to discrimination against women at work and their restriction to the most servile and lowest paid positions. Free state-funded daycare. Further reforms follow. Towards the end of the program, the LSO proposes the creation of a workers' party opposed to all bourgeois parties, a party which will not limit itself to elections, but which will participate in and strengthen all mass struggles, and which will defend the interest of the oppressed in the National Assembly and at all levels of national life. We submit the above drawn program for consideration and adoption by such a class party. The launch of a daily workers' newspaper, trade union democracy, and trade union unity in action. The last three items were proposed to the Quebec trade unions. This famous, quote, workers' party will at most be a reformist, opportunist, and bureaucratic party, like the social democratic and, quote, communist parties of the whole world. It is clear that this program is full of reforms of capitalism, that it is not a revolutionary program with the Marxist slogan, abolition of wage labor. Nationalization under, quote, workers' control has nothing to do with socialism. In this case, the state owns the means of production and distribution, not the community. Those who hold political power then form a collective capitalist class, as was done in Russia, China, Cuba. As for the famous, quote, workers' control, we can say that it was implemented in Russia in 1917, and that in 1918, with Lenin and Trotsky in power, the masters of the Ligue Socialiste Ouvrière, it was transformed into, quote, an iron discipline during work, with absolute submission during work to the will of one, the Soviet leader, end quote. Lenin in The Immediate Tasks of Soviet Power, published March-April 1918, end parenthesis. And what does, quote, workers' control have to do with socialism when it is a classless and stateless system of society? And what does, quote, workers' control have to do with socialism when it is a classless and stateless system of society? If there is still a working class, as the term, quote, workers' control implies, end parenthesis, forced to sell its labor power to the state, there is no trace of socialism. The exploitation of the working class by the state, rather than by private enterprise, is not a step towards socialism. In Russia, the working class simply lost the political democracy it enjoyed for a few months, with the seizure of power by the Bolshevik Party of Lenin and Trotsky and the introduction of state capitalism in November 1917. The LSO's program clearly demonstrates that it desires the reform of capitalism, not capitalism's abolition. The Ligue Socialiste Ouvrière speaks of national independence for Quebec, not of the unity of the world working class for the overthrow of capitalism and the establishment of socialism. In short, its real objective is the establishment of a national state capitalism in Quebec, with the Trotskyist, quote, vanguard in power. On the other hand, the Socialist Party of Canada is the only organization in Canada, and consequently in Quebec, that fights for the socialist program and for the abolition of the capitalist system with all its pillars: wage labor, classes, state, money, nationalism, war, religion. The Socialist Party fights for the establishment of a world socialist community whose main characteristics are, quote, not quote, I don't know why I said quote. Let me repeat the sentence. The Socialist Party fights for the establishment of a world socialist community whose main characteristics are collective ownership of land and industry by the entire community, democratic control of land and industry by and for the world socialist community, free and unrestricted access, given the potential abundance of the current and future world economy, for all men, women, and children, to goods and services, which means that the end of poverty and the present monetary system of rationing with its banks, purchases, sales, profits, and wages. Production to satisfy the individual and collective needs of human beings, not production for profit, as is the rule at present, both in Russia, China, and in the openly capitalist countries of the West. Voluntary work performed by free men and women, cooperating and controlling their working conditions, and producing the goods necessary for humans to live and enjoy life. And this in place of the present wage slavery, where workers must sell their labor power, physical and mental, to an employer, private enterprise or state, for a wage. The abolition of all frontiers, the unity of humanity, the World Socialist Society will take care to preserve diversity in language, music, art, etc., and at the same time will facilitate universal human contact. The World Socialist community will be composed of free and equal men and women. There will be no more national oppression, including that of Quebec, nor racism, sexism, or any other form of exploitation of man by man. In short, one world, one people. This socialist program, as we can see, is completely different from the capitalist program of the Ligue Socialiste Ouvrière. All the characteristics of capitalism continue to exist in the, quote, socialism of the LSO, such as production for profit, for the state, class domination by means of the state, social classes, money, and wage labor. The Ligue Socialiste Ouvrière supports nationalism, which ultimately only serves the interests of the capitalist class, current or future. Quebec nationalism serves the interests of a future capitalist class. The nationalism of the Parti Québécois, I don't think that's how you say it, PQ, advances the interests of the current indigenous bourgeoisie, which through independence could become the dominant capitalist group. The nationalism of the Ligue Socialiste Ouvrière advances the interests of a future capitalist class, that is to say, the class composed of the leaders of a phantom Quebec Revolution that would replace the current capitalists, exactly what happened in Russia in 1917. The Socialist Party of Canada and its companion parties are opposed to all nationalism, American or Russian, to federalism as well as to independence. Nationalism divides the world working class, while its interest is unity for the establishment of world socialism and the complete emancipation of humanity, without distinction of language, race, or sex. We are also opposed to any war, whether it is called defensive, offensive, or, quote, liberating. In the latter case, war has never brought the liberation of the majority but a change of ruling class and exploiters. Cuba is an example. A war of, quote, national liberation was fought in Cuba under the leadership of Fidel Castro and Che Guevara. After their victory, state capitalism was established, which kept intact the exploitation and oppression of the immense majority, who denied the existence of wage labor, banks, production for profit, concentration camps, an omnipresent police state, unbridled militarism, in the short, in short, the characteristics of capitalism in Cuba, Russia, and China. This is not the case for the Ligue Socialiste Ouvrière. It supports so-called defensive and, quote, liberation wars. During the fall of 1973, the Ligue Socialiste Ouvrière supported the Arab countries at war with Israel. Here is their position in Libération, November-December 1973, quote, "We demand an end to all aid to Israel, and we declare our full solidarity with Egypt, Syria, and other Arab countries in their struggle against the aggression perpetrated by Israel and supported by world imperialism," end quote. Previously, the Ligue Socialiste Ouvrière supported the state capitalist dictatorship in North Vietnam and its struggle against Western-style capitalism in South Vietnam. New section, Leninism or Marxism. The Ligue Socialiste Ouvrière adheres to the Leninist theory of the vanguard and to Lenin's theory that differentiates, quote, socialism and, quote, communism. It maintains that the working class cannot acquire a socialist consciousness by itself, that this consciousness must be brought by leaders, a conscious vanguard. It also maintains that the working class cannot emancipate itself by itself, that it must be guided, directed by a vanguard and elite. It sets itself up as this vanguard, which, if it manages to seize political power, becomes the new ruling class, as happened in Russia, China, Cuba. All this demonstrates that the LSO is Leninist and therefore anti-Marxist. Because the Socialist Party of Canada adopts the Marxist position on the terms socialism and communism, for Marx and Engels, these two terms meant the same thing. Let the Trotskyists prove us wrong. Furthermore, the Socialist Party adheres to the Marxist principle, quote, "The emancipation of the working class will be the work of the working class itself," end quote. This is not the case for the LSO, which maintains that the working class needs a, quote, revolutionary leadership, end quote. A Bolshevik position, not a Marxist position. All the revolutions of the past, the Socialist Revolution has never yet been realized. That of Russia in 1917, of China in 1949, were revolutions led by a vanguard, an elite. After the seizure of power, this vanguard, this elite, always transformed itself into a new ruling class, which continued to dominate and exploit the immense majority, workers and peasants. We maintain that the socialist revolution and the establishment of socialism can only be realized if and only if the immense majority of the world working class understands and desires socialism, thus having no need of leadership and ensuring a total victory. The Ligue Socialiste Ouvrière has its roots in Leninism, while the Socialist Party of Canada adheres firmly to Marxism. The Ligue Socialiste Ouvrière is the vanguard. The Socialist Party is the revolutionary instrument of the working class for socialism. The Socialist Party opposes leadership that serves only the interests of the leaders, never those of the working class. In the Socialist Party, all members are equal and there are no leaders, only representatives responsible to the members. The Ligue Socialiste Ouvrière claims that the socialist revolution will require violence for two reasons. All revolutions of the past have been violent, and the capitalist class will not lay down its arms without trying violent resistance and all the means at its disposal. To the first argument, we say that the revolutions of the past were capitalist revolutions, and made in the interests of minorities with the socialist while the socialist revolution will be made by and for the majority, and that violence will become superfluous at that moment. What capitalist class would want to run to suicide by resisting with violence the revolutionary socialist desire and will of the majority? A capitalist revolution of the LSO type requires violence because it is a revolution made in the interest of a minority. And since the Ligue Socialiste Ouvrière does not require the support of the majority as a prerequisite for the Ligue Socialiste Ouvrière's revolution, violence can only break out. The Socialist Party of Canada maintains that the present limited political democracy is the best framework for socialist propaganda. Education and organization to enable the working class to become socialists. We also maintain that elections are the best means of proving whether or not the majority desires socialism. If so, the capitalist class can only capitulate to the revolutionary desires of the majority. If it resists, it will have to face a majority that will use force if necessary. Socialist revolution and world socialism will be possible only when the vast majority of the world's workers have become conscious and convinced socialists. The Ligue Socialiste Ouvrière is a capitalist, reformist, nationalist, and vanguardist organization. Its goal is state capitalism in Quebec, a new form of chains, new exploiters for the working class. The Socialist Party of Canada is a Marxist and revolutionary socialist party. We invite workers to study our program, and if you agree with us, join the ranks of the Socialist Party of Canada, the only revolutionary party of the working class. That's the end. Thanks for listening.